All right, hello Perception Trainers people, and welcome back to another video. So in this video, I'm going to be answering a question that I got and that I get a lot around these videos and around this self-love, which is how do we retrain our nervous systems so that we can actually be our real selves and move past the trauma of our childhood traumas, which is everything that we've been talking about in these videos for most of the videos that I've made since I came back to YouTube. So again, we are looking at and understanding that the true cause of all of our pain and suffering is that we don't know how to learn, right? We all have that learning trauma of if I don't already know the answer, if I don't already know everything, if I'm not already prepared, if what I set out to do and set out to accomplish in the way that I'm going to set out to do it and accomplish it doesn't work, that there's something fundamentally wrong with me, and that's not okay. And we have the trauma of having been rejected, abandoned, and rescued in our childhoods so that we never actually got to become our true selves. The seeds of our true self were expressing, and it got abandoned or it got rejected, and so we learned to then abandon or reject these parts. It got programmed into our nervous system that these parts of ourselves are bad and they're going to cause us to die because they cause our caregivers to withdraw from us, and our caregivers are our source for everything. So therefore, if these parts express, cause our caregivers to withdraw, caregivers withdraw who are our source for everything, we're going to die. So like I say, it gets programmed into our nervous system in our childhoods that if I am to express this thing that is natural to me, it's gonna cause me to die, which is antithetical to true reality, which is true reality says the more you are growing, learning, and expressing the seeds of who you are, the more life supports you. That is what life wants. You may have heard spiritual people talk about that we are just God learning about itself, that we are having this human experience of separation, but the true fact is it's all one. We are all one. We are just God looking at God. I've also heard people say things like God gets the most excited when God learns something about God. So when we fundamentally understand that who and what we are is absolutely connected to everything, is one with all that is. But at the same time, this paradox exists simultaneously. We are an individual. We are not everything. We are never going to have the potential to be anything. We are specific. We are a specific thread in the tapestry of God. And it is our job, but you don't even have to think of it that way if you don't want to. We can literally boil it down to being not esoteric at all and just say, we all have fundamental aspects of self that are who we fundamentally are in our makeup. When we're born, we're not taught how to be certain ways. We're not blank slates. We come in with certain characteristics. And with those characteristics, we either grow them and express them, which is like a plant growing, and then that is a fulfilling life. And understanding that that in and of itself is a journey. You're never going to be complete. You're never going to be done. You're never going to get it all figured out because every part of you has infinite growth potential. So you can't become anything. You don't have infinite potential in that if you are, like for me, I'm never going to become a 6'4" African American basketball player. That's just not a potential for me. Based on the fact that I am in a 5'2" Caucasian, born in Canada, white female body, I don't have the potential for that. However, the seeds of what I do have, this insatiable desire for esoteric knowledge, my love of durian, my love of Asia, all of these things, these fundamental parts of myself that no one had to teach me, this was just who I was forever, have infinite potential for how they can be expressed and infinite growth potential in the fact that I can keep nourishing, loving, and expanding upon these parts. So, for instance, this part of me that is insatiable knowledge for God used to express as Christian, used to express as going to church and praying in my room and journaling. And now it expresses as making videos and writing books. And in 10 years, who knows what it's going to express as? It continues to grow. So the potential for growth of what I actually am is infinite. So I can't be anything, but I can grow what I am forever. So it's not about arriving anywhere. It's not about true self-knowledge and true self-understanding is not this is who I am and it's done and I never have to learn anything about myself ever again. It's going to be a process of unlearning all of the things that you have been trying to force yourself to become that you don't have the seeds for. Allowing yourself to rediscover and love and grow and express the seeds that you do have, and to become someone who lets go of needing to have everything figured out, needing to have the whole world solved, needing to know everything. To surrender to the idea that an enlightened life, a happy life, a spiritual life, a self-improvement life, a life where you can have joy, is not a life where you live in heaven, where you have it all figured out and you know everything and you're just living this bliss day every day, where you never have pain again, where you never have pleasure again, where you never have an emotion again, where you're completely perfect and completely aware and everything's done and now you're just living this perfect day over and over again. That's never going to be what it is. Because in this experience, this life experience, which again is not everything, this life experience is a part of reality. It's not reality. Everything in life is a part of reality. But life is not complete reality. You see? Therefore, this is just the experience that we're having. And so much of our pain and our resistance, so much of our suffering, comes from resisting the idea that we're here to be constantly learning, growing, changing, and expanding. It says in the Bible, the Son of Man has no place to rest his head. And that is because as long as we are living, as long as we are having a life experience, as long as we are God, having an expressive experience as a human, we are going to be evolving, changing, growing, and expanding. That's the one characteristic of life. And if you don't do that, you get taken out. Everything that refuses to grow starts to decay, and then that form of whatever it is breaks down enough that it ceases being in that form. The physical components go back to the earth, the consciousness recycles, and that just seems to be the laws for how it is. And I'm not here to argue why the laws are that way. I'm not here to argue that the laws are that way. If you don't believe that that's how life works, that's fine. I'm not here to argue that with you. That just is my observation. So ultimately, us rejecting ourselves, us not allowing ourselves to be ourselves through, like I said, trying to be something that we aren't, trying not to be something that we are, and fearing the growth process, fearing constantly being in the cycle of desiring something or not desiring something. So wanting to become something or wanting to not have what is going on in your life happening, not understanding why that is happening or why it isn't happening, attempting to go and get it the way that you think it's going to happen or get rid of it the way that you think it's going to happen, having that not work, stepping into the unknown, opening when life doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, opening when you don't understand something, opening when you have disappointment and things don't go how you want them to go, and you thought it was going to work one way and it works another way, instead of shutting down and saying, okay, well, either it's not possible or I'm just going to keep doing what I think is right, because eventually reality is going to bend to my will. We open and say, okay, I don't know. That's exciting. Can I get excited about that? Can I get curious about that? This is a healed trauma. When we are capable of embracing who we are, when we are capable of admitting and accepting what we are simply never going to be, and when we are open to being continually on a path of learning, that is essentially a liberated life. That is what liberation is. We are no longer living in the illusion of a false self, and we are no longer living in the illusion of a perfect heaven. And you're going to notice that when you do this for yourself, all the other kind of spiritual things that people talk about, like forgiveness and seeing the world for how it really is, and stepping into unity consciousness and empathy, and being able to love and support and hold space for yourself, and love and support and hold space for others, and learning how to be interdependent instead of codependent, and learning how to find your purpose, and learning how to be of service, and learning all of these things are natural byproducts of the self-love path. And this is why I teach the self-love path, because to me, it's the most direct path. There are all these other ways that we can awaken to reality. Yes, we can go through periods where we dissociate from our personalities and say that I am not my individual ego. I am not myself. I am not who I am. I am all that is. I am one with everything. I am going to get rid of all these individual identity things so that I can finally identify with the greater aspect. And that's a point on the path, and I'm going to talk about that in the next video. But that's not the ultimate resting point. That's a place we go. We can learn emotional mastery. We can learn physical mastery. We can do physical disciplines, martial arts, yoga, any of these kind of paths that teach us to discipline the body and to help us transcend so many resistances and blocks and lack of container that we can have. And that's definitely necessary and pertinent and potent. But ultimately, we're going to get to where we want to go the fastest, which is, again, this enlightened life of you just living yourself, living your expression, learning constantly about who and what you are, which then, like I said, creates all these other things of living your purpose, knowing how to forgive people, knowing how to climb the vibrational scale, knowing how to have a Kundalini experience or having all these awakening experiences. All that stuff is a byproduct of loving yourself, because who and what you are, you loving you, is your direct access point to accepting reality for how it is, to connecting to greater reality. You connecting in with yourself is your connection to source. When you pray, you are talking to yourself. When you think, you're talking to yourself. We're constantly having a dialogue. Our most intimate relationship, our most sacred bond is the relationship we have with ourselves. So this healing of our nervous system so that we can actually become our true selves is the awakening path. And this is why I say forever, and I have always been saying, that there's no such thing as ego the way that we understand it. There's no bad part of any person. No one is evil. It doesn't exist. We are all traumatized children who are behaving in ways that don't align with how life works. We are antagonistic to life because we don't understand it, because we are traumatized. We all have needs that are not being met, and we are going about getting our needs met in the only ways we know how. And that is what the chaos and destruction we see on the planet is. Every single person who is hurting other people, racism, sexism, all of these things that we see on the planet, you're going to go back into that person's life and you're going to find trauma. You're going to find where they were not allowed to be themselves, where they were abandoned, where they were taught that learning is that mistakes make them wrong and bad. You're going to find at the root of it guilt and shame. This person feels guilty about themselves, they feel shameful about themselves, and they're either turning it in on themselves, right? Most of the world has turned it in on themselves. This is where all of our self-destruction, self-sabotage, the chaos we cause in our own lives is the misunderstanding of a need that we have that has turned into guilt and shame. I shouldn't be this way, I shouldn't need this, there's something wrong with me. We turn it in on ourselves. We try to get rid of that aspect of self. We try to deny that aspect of self. We try to become something else, and we can act like it for the most part in certain ways, in certain times. We can self-improve, we can white knuckle, we can do all that stuff. But the degree to which we are living in a way that's out of alignment with who we are is exactly the degree to which we're going to have scapegoating, we're going to have coping, we're going to have self-sabotage. We're turning it in on ourselves. We're drinking, we're smoking, we're eating food that we know doesn't serve our bodies, but we eat it anyways. We're addicted to sex, we're addicted to binging and purging, we're constantly in drama relationships, we never can find the right job, we're always struggling, searching, never finding it. That's turning it in on ourselves. That's the shadow self, the aspects of self that we are not expressing. And again, the aspects of self that we aren't, that we are continually trying to get ourselves to be. We're being inauthentic. And we can do that, we can put on that act, but like I said, there's always going to be the bounce back of the self-sabotage, the coping, and the scapegoating. Or, like I said, we're turning it outwards. We become victimizers. We become people who take advantage of others. We genuinely believe there's only so much, and we're taking our guilt and our shame and we're externalizing it, and we're saying the only way that anyone is ever going to love me, the only way that I'm ever going to get what I need is to take it, is to manipulate, is to force other people into providing for me. Because that's really what people who take advantage of other people are doing. They're saying, I have a need, I'm actually fundamentally unworthy of having this need. I'm bad, I'm shameful, there's no way that I can get it legitimately. So I have to force other people to give it to me. And so then they use war, they use taking advantage of other people, they make other people subservient to them. It's still shame and guilt. It's coming from, I'm a piece of shit and I don't deserve anything. I am not fundamentally worthy. This is never going to come to me by any kind of natural means. So I have to force it. I have to force myself upon other people. I have to just take it. That's where it's coming from. And so when we finally understand this, that the world is operating under trauma, of course the question is, how do we heal the trauma? How do we heal our nervous systems? Because again, to actually start to embrace who we really are, to actually start to let go of those things about us that are not actually true to our real self, to let go of our identity, right? So the ego that we most think of as the ego, the one we have to let go of, is the conditioned, this is who I have to be in order to be a good person. That just isn't fundamental to who we are. The conditioning of you have to be meek and quiet and calm when you're actually just a naturally very excitable, big, loud person. The conditioning that says you have to be a dentist when you want to be an artist. The conditioning that says that you are an introvert and it's better to be quiet and play in your room when in fact you're actually more extroverted, and you learned from your parents that being an extrovert is bad and that being an introvert is good. So you've been trying to be an introvert and it's killing you. These are the parts of self, the things we think we know about ourselves, that we're trying to get ourselves to be, and we really identify with it, and no, that's really actually who I am. And later we're going to learn that no, that's your conditioning. That's who you think you are. That's who you think you have to be in order to be good. So we do have to let those things go, these things that are not us. And then, like I say, we have to embrace the parts of ourselves that we naturally are, that got shamed and abandoned and rejected. And that's equally difficult because, again, our nervous system is going to kick in and say, no, you cannot be that. We are going to die if we do that. And you have to be these other things. And you're going to die if you're not. So the ultimate healing, right, like I said, is the coming into the facing of the reality that you are no longer a child, that you are no longer dependent upon the approval of your caregivers to get your needs met. And that now, as an adult, the healing of the trauma is learning how to identify your own needs and meet your own needs, and see that even if you get rejected, even if you get abandoned, even if other people judge you, now as an adult, it doesn't matter. That life itself is going to support you as you walk your authentic path, as you walk your learning and growing path. So not as you know exactly who and what you are already now and you express it perfectly and life supports you in that. No. Life supports every single forward momentum towards reality. Life supports every step you take towards learning something new about yourself, unlearning something about yourself, and going after what you desire, what you wish to create, what you wish to be, and learning from that experience. Whether it's a complete failure, as in I learned that that's one of the ways it's not going to happen, or a total success. I went after this thing, I thought this is what was going to happen and what it was going to take, and I was right. Both of those options are life generating. As long as we are in a state of learning, as long as we are in a state of being open to discovering something we didn't know before, and then integrating that information into ourselves so that it informs us, we now know something more about ourselves and more about reality. We are going to be supported by life. As long as we are having a new experience, we are going to be supported by life. And so the ultimate reality is that we need to start to step out of the conditioning that we're in that says we are dependent upon human approval to survive. We are dependent upon human approval to survive. The child trauma that we all carry around, that I have to be approved of by those around me in order to survive. That if I am my real self, if I am who I truly am, these parts of me that got rejected, I'm going to die because they got rejected. And being rejected in my childhood meant death, but being rejected in my adulthood doesn't mean death anymore. I am now an adult who can learn how to meet my own needs when those around me can't meet them for me. So, like I say, ultimately what I'm saying is all of these videos that I'm making are how do we retrain the nervous system. All the awareness, starting to become aware of what hurts, pain and pleasure. And then the learning about our stories that we're telling ourselves. So I would say I'm gonna outline the process, but this is it's not step by step by step by step. You just do this one step and then you do this next step and then you do that and now you're yourself. It's gonna be you're doing all of these steps over and over and over again for every aspect of yourself and for every new thing that you're learning, you're constantly doing these steps. And like I say, this is a process and it's a discipline and it's not an overnight thing because our traumas are in our nervous system. We're gonna be able to use these tools 1 out of 100 times and then 2 out of 100 times. And then we're gonna forget forever. And then we're gonna come back to it. And then and we're also going to we're gonna start to notice that, again, this work is so difficult because we're not aware of what we're not aware of. We genuinely believe our own perceptions. We genuinely believe what we are thinking about the world. And this is why I teach the emotional mastery path, because the mind can be convinced of anything. That is the point of the mind. The mind is there to say, I'm going to figure out how whatever we've decided is reality. Because we're creators. Yes? When things are in order, the true self, the intuition, the God-like part of us, the part of us that is connected to everything, the quantum us, whatever you want to call it, that part is feeling. Okay? And we have to understand that feeling is so much more rich in information than thought. So when we are feeling, we are getting the messages from reality. We need to understand that consciousness lives in every single particle of our being. Consciousness is not in the brain. Consciousness is in every single part of you. And what consciousness is doing is observing. It's perceiving. And it's perceiving in alignment with life, out of alignment with life. Because the consciousness that we are is having a life experience. So every one of your particles is simply perceiving. Life generating, growth path, upward spiral, toroidal field, constructive, creative, expansive, or destruction, destabilizing, chaotic, less energy, moving towards breaking down. That's all it's doing. Over and over and over again, your particles just perceiving growth or death, growth or death. And there's no judgment. On the quantum level, when you connect with God, you're never going to feel bad about a death spiral. You're not going to feel good about a life cycle. You're going to understand that it's just the game of life. It's not right or wrong. It's learning. You can be on a complete self-destruction path for the rest of your life. It's going to be painful because that's your senses sensing death, which is out of alignment with the life experience. But ultimately, it's not out of alignment with anything. The ultimate experience is we're going to learn something from that. You can just go on a complete self-destruction course, and then God learned about itself. God learned that's what destruction looks like. God learned more about the reality of life through that complete breaking the self against it. It's not wrong. There's no shame. There's no guilt. There's nothing wrong with that. The more you connect with the higher truths, the less you're going to feel like you have to do it right and you have to be alive. And this is where we can let go of our fear of death. Because again, most of us are making death mean failure and separation and abandonment, and we're never going to be around anyone ever again because we're disapproved of. But that's not reality. So every one of your particles is perceiving life and death, growth, destruction. And so when we are in feeling, because our particles speak to us in feeling, they don't speak to us in words and our thoughts. They speak to us in feeling. Life speaks to us in feeling. So we feel expansive or we feel contraction. We feel lightness, we feel heaviness, we feel energy, we feel a drop off in energy. That's authentic. Our particles reacting to truth, which is life generating in this reality, or death, which is life degrading in this reality. And then we start to nitpick. Am I feeling what I'm feeling? Right, so everything in order, we're feeling this way. And then we are not telling ourselves stories. We're getting down to the root of why I feel that way. What exactly is life generating and what exactly is life degrading? So where it can get complicated is, again, we can be in story, and that is what our perception particles are picking up on and saying pain, because the way that we're perceiving something is incorrect. It's not necessarily that what we're doing is wrong. But the way that what we're making what we're doing mean, that's wrong. So for instance, I am a highly intuitive person and have for my whole life been able to sense what's going on with someone else. So I can be walking with my husband and we can be having a conversation and I can feel the second his thoughts go to something else. And that's, I understand now, a very uncomfortable situation for somebody else to not be able to like have a thought without me knowing about it. But I can feel when he thinks something, gets distracted in the conversation. For me, that can be a very painful experience. That I'm talking to him and then his thoughts leave. Because I have trauma stories that tell me that if he starts thinking about something else, he doesn't care about me, he doesn't care about what I'm talking about, he thinks I'm stupid, he thinks I'm annoying, he doesn't want to be around me, all of these shame stories. There's something wrong with me. And he's ejected himself because he doesn't want to be around me because I'm fundamentally awful. And that's stuff I learned in my childhood from my caregivers who really did not want to listen to me talk, who were actually overwhelmed by everything that I was saying, by people who pretended to want to be around me and offered me their ear and said they were fine with it, and then later told me they hated me and they wished that they hadn't talked to me and they felt hostage to me and all of these things. So the pain that I feel when he drops off is not because him dropping off is fundamentally out of alignment with life and hurting me. Not at all. He's allowed to think about whatever he wants. He does not owe me his attention. It's all the stories of I'm making that mean that there's something fundamentally wrong with me is the reason why that hurts. So you see, this process of unlearning our traumas and coming back into reality starts with understanding that we are creators and our minds have taken on a lot of stories to explain the pain that we've been in that we didn't actually understand. I developed that story of I'm too big, I'm too much, I shouldn't be this way, and when people eject themselves from wanting to be around me, that there's something fundamentally terrible about me. I developed that story as a response to the people around me in my childhood not wanting to be around me and being a child who needed people to need to be around me. Again, I needed my caretakers to want to be around me. So that's a trauma. When they didn't want to be around me, they're my source for everything. I developed shame and guilt stories to get myself to stop being that way so that they would love and accept me. But now as an adult, I am not dependent on my husband loving me and having a conversation with me to get food, to get nourishment, to even get validated. So all these things. So that pain I can start to understand is, okay, it feels bad when he drops off. Why does it feel bad? What is the story I'm telling myself? So again, the first step in healing our traumas is awareness. Awareness that we are feeling something and awareness of the stories. Because again, the mind is simply there to make up a story to make sense of what's happening. It can be right and it can be wrong. The mind can make up all these stories, and it did. Your mind has made up a million stories about reality that seem true to you because the mind is a creator. This is how we create things that don't exist. We can imagine things that don't already exist, and we can create them through the mental process of imagination. That's our brains being used for good. Creation. We have a feeling inside, I want to fly, and we create the airplane through understanding reality. I've talked about this a million times. But at the same time, because our minds can invent things that don't exist, we can also invent things that don't exist in the negative. Stories that don't exist in the negative sense, in it's an illusion, and it's not how reality functions. And this is the life that most of us are living. We are in pain because our particles are sensing that pretty much all the stories we're telling ourselves are insane. They are not reality. We don't know what anything means. We don't know why we're doing what we're doing. We don't understand ourselves. We don't understand reality. We're trying to be successful in life. We're trying to get our needs met. We're trying to be who we are. We're trying to grow, learn, and express, which is that natural thing inside of us. But we have all these false narratives, this conditioning of who we're not allowed to be, who we have to be, and what learning means that's stopping us from doing it. So we are a house divided. So the first step in this process is understanding you are probably insane. The more you are in pain, number one, and the more you have parts of yourself that behave in one way, that contradicts what you think you want to do, that contradicts who you think you want to be, that does things that hurt you, that does things that hurt other people, the habits and the things that you have that you do that you don't want to do, but you can't get yourself to stop, insanity. It's a story. It comes down to you believe something about yourself, about reality, that isn't true. And at this point, you don't have an awareness of it because your perception to you is correct. You think you're seeing the world for the way that it is, and you're making judgments, and you're making choices, and you're doing what you're doing based on reality because it's reality to you. Your experiences of being rejected, your experiences of being abandoned, your experiences of negative consequences in your childhood for being yourself and for not knowing did happen. But the stories you have around that now as an adult, and the stories that your nervous system has around that as an adult, that if I am this way, I'm going to die. If I don't know everything, I'm going to die. I need external approval in order to be good enough. I'm a traumatized child. Everyone else is the authority figure. What I need comes from the outside. We're stuck in childhood. That's what the ego is. I am traumatized. I don't know how to meet my own needs, so I manipulate myself or others to get my needs met. My needs that I don't even know that I have. So then I get very upset. We're constantly in these dramas of upset with our partners and upset with our friends and upset with our parents because they're not meeting our needs that we don't even know that we have, and we don't know how to communicate them, and we're just constantly disappointed with ourselves and each other, and again, manipulating and playing roles and not knowing why we're doing it and all of this stuff. We are insane. We don't know who we are. We don't know who the other person is. We don't understand being an adult. We don't understand reality. So like I say, the first step is awareness. We're in pain, and we're in pain for a reason. We're in pain because our perception is incorrect. It's all going to come down to a perception misunderstanding. The way you think you are, the way you think others are, the way you think the world is incorrect. That's why it hurts. So, and this is one of the most fundamental things that when I work with clients, when I work with people, we have a thought, it feels terrible. I'm a piece of shit and I'm lazy. It feels awful. And I say, okay, anything that feels terrible isn't true. Pain is telling us it's out of alignment with reality. There's something out of alignment with reality in what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're doing. The pain is letting us know it's not true. It's not how life works. And everyone says, yeah, but it feels true. And I say, no, it doesn't feel true. It feels painful. It sounds true because it's familiar. It's a story you've told yourself 1,000,000 times that has then coaxed you into making choices that you think are going to fix this problem based on your conditioning of how you think you have to be in order to get your needs met. It doesn't feel true. It feels bad. It feels false when we understand that our perception is simply pain equals life degrading, not true, not in alignment with reality, and pleasure equals true, in alignment with reality, in alignment with life, this experience that we're having. Neither is right or wrong, good or bad. It's just, do we want to live and grow, or do we want to destroy ourselves? Either option is okay, but when we want to be a conscious creator, we're saying I'm choosing to grow and expand myself. Because ultimately that's what feels good in this life experience. So we start to become aware of our pain. And then we have to accept and embrace that we don't know why we're in pain. We have to embrace the unknown. We feel the pain of trying to be something and constantly failing at it. We feel the pain of the thoughts we're thinking about ourselves. We feel the pain of, I have to do this, and I have to be this, and I don't want to. And there's something wrong with me that I don't want to. I should want that. And all the stories we have about if I don't want that, what that means about me. And all of these things, we start to see, wow, okay, there's so much story. There's so much narrative on top of reality that we start to just become aware of the pain and we become aware of the stories. That's the first step. And then the second step is making it okay. We start to become our own safe place. So this is where we start to learn non-reaction. We feel the pain. We feel the discomfort. We feel the toxic fuel of shame and guilt wanting to drive us to go and do what we've always done. Right? So even that, becoming aware of our patterns. Becoming aware of, I constantly think the new diet is the thing. I constantly think the new relationship is the thing. I have to get this job and I have to be successful in this way. I constantly am trying to go after this same thing over and over again, doing it slightly different ways, expecting different results, that when I get the body, when I get the job, when I get the relationship, when I get the house, when I get to the right location, when I finally have enough people around me loving me, when I have enough money, I will be happy. We recognize these stories. We recognize our cycles of self-sabotage, coping, and scapegoating. We're constantly making it about our body. We're constantly making it about our relationship. We blame something for our pain that we think we can fix. It's just my body. Once I get thin enough, I'll be happy. It's just a relationship. Once I fix the relationship, I'll be happy. We start to notice these stories, these patterns, these cyclical things. And then rather than reacting right away, when we start to feel our desire to engage in our scapegoating and our self-sabotage and our coping mechanisms, we just take a second to be with ourselves and feel the emotion that's underneath it. Okay? And emotion is simply a cluster of feelings. So we have the particles perceiving, pain, pleasure. That's feeling. Light, heavy, dark, light, I already said. Tension, expansion. These feelings. And then they cluster to equal sadness, anger, fear, which we're going to start to notice that when we dissect sadness, when we dissect anger, when we dissect fear, it's a little bit pleasure, a little bit pain, a little bit pleasure, a little bit pain. We have pain stored in the chest, in the solar plexus. We have pain in our face. We have hot in our face. We have rushing in our hands, right? Like the sadness sensation is the same grouping of feelings every single time. The anger sensation is the same grouping of feelings every single time. So we start to notice these clusters of feeling, which has created emotion, which then we have a story about. Why I'm angry, why I'm sad, and what I need to do about it. And we start to become aware that that may be incorrect. So we start to be able to sit with our emotions and then boil them down to feeling. I'm just feeling tension in my jaw. I'm feeling tension in my chest. I'm feeling a contraction in my gut. I'm feeling. We're starting to pick apart the awareness, and then we slowly increase our tolerance to be with whatever we're feeling. And as we do this, we are reparenting ourselves, okay? As we make our feelings okay, we don't react to them. We don't try and get away from them. We don't try to fix them. We don't try to make them go away. We don't try to, what's the answer? We just start to learn to sit with it. That is training ourselves to be in the observer self the God self, the parent self that we never had. We're having an emotional reaction. Our bodies and our minds are telling us something is out of alignment. Something is hurting me. And rather than being rejected, shamed, or abandoned like we were in our childhoods, we're starting to be available for ourselves to say, okay, let's observe this. Let's learn from this. What is this actually telling me? The emotion isn't bad. The reaction isn't wrong. The fact that I want to scapegoat, that I want to self-sabotage, that I want to do all of these things, these actions are not bad. They are a symptom of a need that I have that I don't know how to meet. They are a symptom of a false narrative, so I'm living out of alignment with life and I don't even know that I'm doing it. I think I'm doing the right thing and I'm destroying myself, and I don't understand that. So I'm in pain and I don't know why. That's the trauma of our childhood. I'm in pain and I don't know why. I'm trying to be myself and I can't. I'm trying to learn something and I'm not being helped. I'm being told that I need to be something that I don't want to be. I'm being told I have to do something that I don't want to do. Our feelings are right. But ultimately, we don't understand them. And that's why we need to become the observer self. We make it okay. We make everything okay. We start to learn unconditional presence with ourselves. Unconditional presence. And we're going to notice again that underneath all of our feelings, when we start to be with our feelings, there's going to be shame and there's going to be guilt. And I want you to understand again that those are always false narratives. I made a video on this, and please go and watch that, why shame and guilt are always false narratives. It's just a story on top of your pain that you learn from your caregivers instead of being validated in your pain and why are you in pain, and you're right, you're not making it up. Pain is coming for a reason. This really isn't in alignment with you, or you're telling yourself something about this that isn't true, or something like this. There's something wrong with you that you're in pain. That's where shame and guilt comes from. You are simply perceiving life and death, and then you got shamed for that because humans think, no, this is how life is. So if you don't do it like this, you're wrong. You're bad. We're all afraid of death. We all have this sense that if we live in alignment with death, we're going to die, and we don't want to do that. So we've come up with all these narratives for this is what it takes to survive. And then that's what consensus reality is. That's what conditioning is. This is what we have to be to live. That's out of alignment with truth. That's why your parents taught you everything they taught you, because they think that is what is required for survival. They were just teaching you what they knew, which is not true. Otherwise, it would feel good. Okay, so this is where conditioning comes from. It's just humanity not understanding ourselves, not understanding how life works, thinking this is what is required for life when it isn't, and being so afraid of death that we can't learn. So again, we start to develop this compassion for ourselves, and we start to develop our capacity to be with our feelings. And that's why the masculine disciplines of some form of physical exertion, some form of learning how to train your mind to be with discomfort and not run away is imperative. Not because we need to understand that that is a means to an end. We're not here to become the monk who can sit on fire and burn to death, as though that's some sort of spiritual accomplishment. It's a means to an end. We learn to sit with our pain. We learn the discipline of don't run away. Feel it, investigate it, because it's only in sitting with what we're feeling, sitting in our pain, sitting in our trauma, and not reacting, and then showing up with that, it's okay. I'm going to make it safe. Because again, remember, our nervous systems, love and acceptance equals safety. Only in safety can we open to learning, growing, changing, and evolving, expanding, seeing something we've never seen before. So we have to understand that we're traumatizing and triggering ourselves into staying in our trauma every time we make what we feel not okay. Because when we reject ourselves, we shut down. That's death. When we love ourselves, we open up and we can learn. And then we can learn something new. Then we can expand beyond what we're doing. If we really need to understand that our pain is because of our habits that are out of alignment with life. But if we want to be able to do something new, we have to feel safe. And the only way we feel safe is through love. That is why self-love is the path. So we learn to be with these things. We learn to be with our feelings, not make them wrong, not make it mean that we're bad, not make it mean that we're doing something wrong, that we're awful, all of these things, but rather understanding that it's a message. It's just a message. It's just a message. And that, so we can learn to be with the message. We can learn to get the message. Why am I in pain? We learn to sit with the pain so the pain can show us what is in and what is out of alignment. So for me, the first time I learned this was with my anxiety. I was in pain. I was constantly trying to run away from my anxiety. Workaholism, eating disorder, over-exercising, being a compulsive people pleaser. I had all of these coping mechanisms for getting away from my anxiety. And when I first started to learn to be with the anxiety and make the anxiety okay, it was incredibly scary to say, it's okay if I feel this anxiety forever, you never have to leave. I'm just going to be with the anxiety and get curious about it. Unconditional loving presence started to become my own parent. And then the anxiety let me know, hey, you need a break. And then that led to, you think your only worth comes from serving. You think, like, it was this whole unraveling over years and years and years of being with the same anxiety and getting deeper and deeper and deeper messages that showed me more and more and more how I was living out of alignment with reality. And then, so this unconditional loving presence brings us more and more answers that it's okay. And then the second part of that is developing the discipline to sit with the discomfort. So we do our physical practices. We show up in meditation every single day, even though it's uncomfortable. We show up and we do our yoga practice every single day, even though it's uncomfortable. We show up for our workout routine. We show up for our martial arts. We show up for the disciplines that we don't want to do, but that we need to develop the capacity to be in so that we can develop the ability to be with our own pain, to get past the stories so that we can just feel it. We can get into feeling, right? We eventually get to a place where we're not thinking about our pain anymore. We're not making up stories about what it means and what I need to do about it. We learn to sit so that we push past that into just feeling it. And that's when new awareness is going to come. We're going to say, okay, it's really just because I don't want to do this. I really just don't want to be here. The pain is coming from I'm telling myself I have to live in this city and the city is crazy and I don't want to be in this city. The pain is coming from I'm telling myself I have to be this person for this person and I don't want to do it. Okay, we start to get that awareness. And then it's about acting on it. So this is where most of the time the wheels fall off. Is that we get the awareness, we understand, we take ayahuasca, we take mushrooms, we do all these things, we have this awareness, we break down our resistance to feeling. The feeling starts to let us know. We break down our resistance to letting go of our stories. We let go of our stories, we understand things the way they are. Now we have to actually live it. That's when the nervous system is going to be like, no, fuck that, we're not doing it. Great, you understand it, but no, we're not doing that. That's when, again, we take that observer self that we've been developing, that I can be on my own side, and we start to take new action based on our new awareness. Face the fact that we are going to be rejected. Face the fact that we are going to be abandoned. Face the fact that we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to know how things are going to go. We're going to fall on our face. We're going to attempt to be something and get rejected and all of these things. We're going to be re-traumatized just like we were in our childhood. All of those things are going to happen again. And we have to love ourselves through it. We stay open to ourselves. We stay curious. What happened? What did I learn? Is this really a true part of me? Yes. And so I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to do it even though it leads to some chaos, even though it leads to someone not liking me, even though it leads to all these things. And of course, right, it's not about just I'm going to do whatever I want and fuck everyone else. because that's not going to feel good for you. Again, becoming someone who knows how to be cooperative and love your neighbor and be someone who's living your authentic life that's supportive of the whole. You're going to learn that through this process. And again, you're going to discover there are so many things that you think that you're doing right now that make you a good person that are actually very codependent and supportive of a way of being that isn't actually good for anybody. It's codependency. It's someone's in addiction, someone's in shame, someone's in blame, and we're in cleaning up their mess for them so that they don't feel the pain of the consequences of their reaction. And we think that makes us a good person when in fact that's actually antithetical to life. We're robbing them of the capacity to learn from what they're going through. So our definitions of what is a good and a bad person are going to change as we do this. And like I say, it's this path of following our feelings and then being open to learning from them. And so I can tell you again from my personal experience, I have rebelled from everything my parents thought that I should be. And every single time I've embraced my true self, it looked crazy. Quitting my job to find an online job, selling all my things and moving to Asia, moving in with this man that I got together with 2 months ago. The more I followed what felt good for me, the more I absolutely got rejected by my caregivers. The more I got rejected by society, the weirder and weirder I have become. Yet, my life is becoming more and more abundant, less and less difficult. I am provided for now and have to work so much less hard to have more than I've ever had. That has made it so that my container for creativity is infinite. What I can offer the world for free. This doesn't cost me anything. Like, I'm making these videos that I know are what people charge thousands and thousands of dollars for their clients to have. I put them out for free because I can, because I'm being supported for just being myself. My caregivers don't approve. A lot of society doesn't approve, but life approves, and life is supporting me. And so I've been rejected and abandoned and told that I'm wrong and bad and horrible by a lot of people. And so I just learned how to meet my own needs. I just found other people that don't think that about me. And again, it's not that I'm an abusive person. I can tell when I'm abusing someone and when my behavior, my self-abuse is creating abuse for someone else. And I take responsibility for that because, again, I'm my own inner parent. I know how to change. That it's not wrong and bad and shameful. I was doing something that I was out of unawareness. So I can accept that about myself and I can change. Because it doesn't mean I was wrong, bad, and horrible before. It means I didn't know something before. I can love myself, I can make it okay, and then I can be different. I can take responsibility because it doesn't mean all these horrible things. You see, it's this huge path of learning to do things, learning to learn from pain and pleasure. And so that's the overview. And it's not easy and it's not simple and it's very challenging. That's why waking up, the truth will always be for the minority because it takes everything. I think I have to admit that, right? There is no easy path. There's no easy way. There's no quick fix. There's no way to make it understandable and simple. It's complicated. So this is the path that I'm walking, the self-love path that I'm taking. And this is what I've discovered about it. And it is hard and it is worth it. And so if you kind of want more help and more resources, that's why I made the mystery school. I've laying this out step by step, processes, practices, everything that I've done, I've put it in there. But ultimately, it's a dedication. It's a complete, unwavering dedication to yourself, to figuring out what life is, and to, if it hurts, it's not true. And I'm going to figure out what is true. And I'm going to be constantly open to learning something new. And that's really the bottom line. I'm going to be disciplined enough to discipline myself, to build that masculine container so that I can have the feminine flow of information and understanding and change. And then doing different things than I've ever done before, feeling like I'm going to die and doing it anyways. I think that's the other big bottom line. It's that ego death. We face it over and over again. Every time we have a false narrative about ourselves or about the world, we're going to reface that, and it's going to feel like we're going to die, and that's your nervous system trying to protect you. That's what ego death is. And we do it over and over and over and over and over again. So we build our tolerance for letting go of who we thought we were, for letting go of what we thought we had to be, letting go of where we think nourishment and nurturing comes from, and seeing that that's not reality, that we can be provided for in many different ways. It's a letting go of our stories and developing is this how it really works? You don't need a teacher, you don't need anyone to tell you. If you have a question about how reality works, ask it and then experiment. Reality will tell you, because if a teacher tells you, they learned it from reality. All the answers that you seek are around you. They're within you. Just observe. Just start to question your stories, make space for your stories to be wrong, and start to observe reality. Stop reacting, start being, start feeling, all of these things. All right? So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. Join the mystery school, all of that, and I'll see you in the next video. Mwah.